pay. The US, when they borrow money, they're getting it in 1.5, 1.9 interest rate. Africans, when they get the same amount of money, they're paying 9, 10%. The people who don't need a break, they get a break. The ones who need a break, they don't get a break.
So African countries are increasingly opting for deeper cooperation with Russia and China as a result of basically France and the West's fiascos or increasing fiascos.
Disclaimer here, this video is for educational and commentary purpose only. This channel does not support any form of violence, hate speech, or any illegal activity. This video is for educational and commentary purpose only. Hey beautiful people, how y'all doing today? It's your girl Destiny here and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I have a couple of videos to show you guys and I'm super excited about this video I want to show you guys. So it seems like Africans, black people are waking up to this colonized masters trick and everything. So first video I'm going to show you guys, a former AU ambassador to the US speaking up about this economy and how this borrow and investments the US and UK are doing in Africa, how is anyway guys, I need you guys to see this first video of her talking about this. I find this video very interesting.
Pay. The US, when they borrow money, they're getting it in 1.5, 1.9 interest rate. Africans, when they get the same amount of money, they're paying 9, 10%. The people who don't need a break, they get a break. The ones who need a break, they don't get a break. The sheer survival of the World Bank, IMF, is based on the fact that African countries and many other developing countries do not succeed. Their success is based on our failure. That has to change. And guess who can make that change? We, the children of Africa, we, the Africans, are the ones who have to say, we know your game now. Enough is enough. We're not playing it anymore. And this is where the diaspora come in. There are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City than in the entire country of Ghana. There are more Nigerian doctors in LA than in the entire country of Nigeria. So let's be serious here. What Africa needs is capacity. And that capacity is in the diaspora. So it behooves us to bring the diaspora together. Let them understand what is really going on in our Africa. Diaspora are not going home. Diaspora are angry about Africa because they are not understanding the root cause of why Africa is where it is today. They think getting rid of a president will take care of the problem. Far from it. That president is just going to be replaced by another one who's going to equally suffer from the same difficult environment to work in. So let's look at an Africa that must be free to take care of herself, an Africa that's free from exploitation from outsiders. The multinationals who are stealing from Africa every day in broad daylight. I use an example of the DRC. If you ever fly very low over the DRC, you'll see tarmacs in the jungle. You'll see 747s flying into DRC, picking up minerals and flying right out. The same multinationals are responsible for arming young people and giving them MK-16s. Because why? Their satellites in the skies are telling them where that village is. There are lots of diamonds. So what do? Arm young people, drag them up, and send them to go chop off a few heads. The rest of the village runs away, so they come behind and do their illegal mining. We black people must understand what is really going on. Because what we are shown instead is, oh, look at those Africans killing each other. There are some serious games that have been played in Africa for far too long. And once we understand that, we can strategize as to how we can begin to bring the difference and bring the change that Africa needs. And that change can only come if the African diaspora are united. And the Wakanda villages, as I call them, it is our organized way of saying, starting with one African diaspora center of excellence, it will be a new city, a developmental hub that we can then take from there. Every sector is developed. Take healthcare. How many doctors do we need in this region to take care of this many people? We pick up education, same thing. We pick up engineering. We pick up electricity. How many megawatts of power do we have in the region? How many do we need? Be it solar, be it wind, be it hydro, be it geothermal, be it nuclear.
So that is that talking about the dynamic, and the truth is that if you look at the, the economical or the World Bank system of why Africa should borrow and Africa and America don't bear the same interest rate, like it does not make sense. It just seems as something that was made and it's just they say, okay, that is how we do it. And I'm really happy that Africans are speaking up about it. She's from Zimbabwe, so I'm really happy that Africans are speaking about it, and we are asking questions like, really, do we really need the Westerners? Anyway, guys, the next videos I'm going to show you guys is 2 videos, so I'm going to put them together. It's a video of France president coming to the Republic of Congo and trying to convince the Republic of Congo why Africa needs France. It seems like Africa is waking up to the reality of what is happening, and I find this conversation and I find this very, very interesting. I need you guys to see this video and then we'll talk.
So while the church was having a great time in Christ over the weekend, you know, we really had a packed weekend. We had communion service, we had church service, we had other services. So the church was really having a great time. President Macron was kicked out of Africa. Very embarrassing and surely frustrating for him. So he's so angry and he's blaming it all on Russia and the Wagner Group. France is not wanted in many countries in Africa, and I guess their Midas touch has turned to dust. I also suppose what's left is for Macron to be kicked out of France. Macron had an argument with the Democratic Republic of Congo president while he was on a visit to the nation. The argument took place when Congo president reminded his French counterpart about his country's involvement in the 1994 genocide. However, Macron bluntly rejected the blame attributed to France. So President Emmanuel Macron now says the era of French interference in Africa was over. The president was on a 4-nation tour of the continent to renew freight ties. The anti-French sentiment still runs high in some former African colonies as the continent becomes a renewed diplomatic battleground, with Russia and the Chinese influence growing in the region. And this is the president's 18th trip to the continent. But the discontent in Africa against how the world powers have treated Africans is still rife. So was Macron's visit to Africa a way to strengthen diplomatic relationships or to defend economic interests? Well, let's talk about this. Mali, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic. The latest word now is that even Niger, which has been one of the reliable French allies, is now starting to have doubts. Doubts about the rule of the French in their countries. The fact is, the French have long overstayed their welcome in all these West African countries. They basically run the financial systems of these countries ever since they grounded these countries into plan. The shadow empire that they created in Africa is disintegrating all around them, and they don't know what to do. Blinken was in Africa. The British hosted a Commonwealth meeting in Africa. The Chinese and the Russians are also in Africa. Now, interestingly, South Africa now has naval exercises alongside China and Russia, and the Americans are not at all pleased with this. So Sudan is opening a Russian naval base. Djibouti already has a Chinese naval base. Ethiopia, which has basically sorted out its war in Tigray, successfully that is also aligning with China and Russia, and so is Eritrea.
Reacting to this question about compromise in Africa, I just want to say that, madam, this is precisely what needs to change in our relations with France in particular, but also with Europe and the West in general. Your way of seeing things when irregularities occur in Africa is different from how you see things when there are irregularities in American elections. No one talks about American-style compromise when irregularities happen in the US. Similarly, when there was a scandal about deceased voters being allowed to vote during Chirac's years in France, no one talked about French-style compromise. I think there needs to be respect and consideration between us. We have no intention of disregarding the opinions of our voters. The electoral process has already begun, and we have raised enough alarms to say that if there is a risk of derailment, it is not because of the country's authorities or the senior officials.
French, European, and American journalists ask the same questions to their leaders at home. The second thing, and I want to emphasize this because the president talked about France in response to the question. When a French journalist asks a question, it is not the French government. But no, that's the position of France because there is none, there are none.
That is untrue. I do not agree what you said. I want referring to your Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian, he is a French official. I am referring to Minister Le Drian, he is not a journalist. What I wanted to clarify is that this also needs to change in the way we cooperate with France and Europe. Look at us differently, by respecting us and considering us as true partners, and not always with a paternalistic gaze, with the idea of always knowing what's best for us.
I found that really very interesting and would like to see more boldness of that nature coming out from more African presidents. But you know what happens if you are bold like that, you come out, you speak for yourself, they come after you. It's like that everywhere. Whether you're a president, whether you're just an ordinary person, you stand for yourself, you become the black sheep. Very interesting. But the big question is, so what happens next to France, to Macron and his, cronies? What happens next? But I want you to listen to Alexander McCory.
Let's face it, Macron's big new French strategy in Africa speech was always going to be about how Paris was going to maintain a foothold in Africa after being booted out of its traditional stomping grounds, so the Sahel region, where its stability and security and counterterrorism operations led to coups in places like Mali and jihadists running around with about as much discipline as French kids on a school break. Talk about terrorists. So African countries are increasingly opting for deeper cooperation with Russia and China as a result of basically France and the West's fiascos, or increasing fiascos, and that makes Paris and the West in general really nervous. So now Macron has just announced that he suddenly does not believe in military contests between countries. I guess because France is losing on that footing in Africa, so he's just going to change the rules now. I mean, kind of like we did in preschool when we were playing games and we didn't like that we were losing. He basically said that Africa should not be reduced to grounds for a military measuring contest. So he's declaring a, quote, end of a cycle for France in Africa. France's military footing has been used by others, he says, to say that France only had a security agenda. So what is Macron's big idea now? Well, there was a clue that it was going to be about money when he made a positive reference in his speech. France's financial community of Africa's franc. So it was the currency that existed in France before the euro. He referred to it as one of France's big contributions to the continent. But here's what Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said about the CFA franc in 2019.
This is a child who works in a gold mine in Burkina Faso. It's one of the poorest nations in the world. France prints colonial money for Burkina Faso, which has gold. In return, they demanded 50% of everything Burkina Faso exports ends up in the coffers of the French treasury. The gold that this child goes down a tunnel to extract mostly ends up in the coffers of the French state. So the solution is not to take the Africans and bring them to Europe. The solution is to free Africa from certain Europeans who exploit it and allow these people to live off what they have.
So that currency of 14 different African nations is printed in France, and it involves, or up until 2020, involved having 50% of its foreign exchange reserves of those countries based in an operational account in the Bank of France, and it's also pegged to the euro. And Macron said it was a great thing because it helped them get up to standards for investors globally. So now Macron wants to build on that, what he considers a wonderful symbol of French-African cooperation, which is quite controversial for a lot of Africans, especially with respect to sovereignty over their own currency, to focus on investments in healthcare, education, digital technology, sports, culture, small business, all backed by what he calls a European team. So here comes Team EU. He mentioned a desire to work with civil society in Africa several times. So all of this amounts to what is basically an innovative new concept. It seems that Macron has literally just discovered soft power. So instead of going into African countries under the pretext of helping with security and sticking around long after the situation gets even worse in hope of eventually scoring some natural resources, so basically the American model, Macron is now proposing to go in with footballs, French-style philosophical debates, maybe some Johnny Holiday CDs, maybe some French art, and some cash for NGO workers who can serve as French influencers in the digital space probably, and on the ground, all for France. And with the hope that all of this might ultimately help to shake loose some sweet, sweet African resources. Presumably. Macron even said, quote, "We aren't going to do common good." And that he said you can't take people for imbeciles. He said that France is going to defend its interests, but also do it respectfully of Africans. Not sure how admitting that you're taking a different approach to manipulating them is being respectful and not taking Africans for imbeciles, but okay. Looks like Washington is also trying to see if it can be self-servingly influential by using sweetness and candy instead of bombs. Literally, that is what U.S. First Lady Jill Biden did recently in Namibia by giving out candy, M&Ms to kids. Of course, all these investments that Macron talks about will ultimately benefit French firms in Africa. That's always been the case with U.S. and Western investments on the continent. But it seems like they're trying really hard to create this kind of PR-friendly good guy image of candy and rainbows, all whitewashing their militaristic, well, failed militaristic and background of militarism, all while kind of trying to portray Russia and China as the bad guys.
Let me know what you think about these videos that you just sent down in the comment section. I would love to know your thoughts, because that's what we do here. We have conversation. So feel free, share your opinion down in the comment section, but please do it respectfully. You don't have to disrespect somebody else for you to air your opinion. So share your opinions, state what you want to state clean, clear, and respectfully. So here's my thought about this. Like, do Africa really need the West? Do Africa really need all these foreign countries? The truth is that no, we really don't, because we have everything. Our weathers are favorable. We have fertile soil. We have mineral resources. Africa is rich. So in real sense, it's Western world that needs Africa. So Africa should get that. I'm very happy that a lot of Africans are openly having this type of conversation where we're asking ourselves, do we really need them? Africans are standing up for themselves. But for me is that, there's a question I want to ask you guys. For me is that, do you think African line up with China and Russia, do you think it's going to benefit Africa? For me personally, I don't know why African leaders are scared, because I would say it. I don't know why African leaders are scared, that they feel like they need a foreign body to back themselves up, like them aligning with China and Russia to turn down the US and the British and the France and all that. I don't know why African leaders feel like they need an external body, which I feel that's a conversation we should have for another day, because China, what China is doing in Africa now, presently now, it's crazy. This is why I feel like content creators like myself that create this type of content where we awake and inform people, because like for me personally, a lot of things I didn't know until I started creating content. And I feel like educating more Africans, educating more blacks about the situation of things really helps us to know our worth, and then help us to stand up. So I feel like this is a step in the right direction, even though I'm still like scratching the back of my head over China and Russia, but I feel like it's a step. And another thing I want to say is that a lot of Africans and a lot of citizens in African countries don't know the trivial law that was signed in place for Africans to get their independence. And I feel like whatever terms and conditions that this colonized master gave to African countries, like we're seeing in France and Republic of Congo now, is that it's running its course. It's about to end. So I feel like a lot of them now, they are really shaking, and they want to get Africa to be that thing that they want. I'm super excited to see more of this type of development come through in Africa, where Africans realize that we can stand on our own and we can do life on our own. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this video down in the comment section. Go ahead and share your thoughts, because that's what we do here. Share this video with somebody that you want to be part of the conversation, because that's what That's what we do here. We have conversation. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Please like this video because this helps YouTube to push out my content, and that will be you supporting my channel. But also that will be you also pushing out the content to educate more Africans and more black people about what is going on. So please smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And with that all said, guys, I will see you guys in my next video. Deuces.